Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, and we are here with our producer, Michael, and we're thrilled to have back on the show my father, Dr. George Schwimmer. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of seeing or listening to him, he's been studying and practicing metaphysical disciplines for over 40 years. He's a certified past life therapist trained by the Association for Past Life Research and Therapy, and his other training includes the Arthur Ford International Academy of Mediumship and Dr. Alberto Villado. He's the author of over 20 books, screenplays, and stage plays. Today, he's coming back on the show to share with us part 2 of spirit releasement and spirit attachment. So we're very excited to have him come back. He did a show 2 years ago, so make sure to check it out in our archives because he's going to build on that show, but certainly you'll understand this show too. But before we get started, Michael does have a few announcements.
Hi, everybody, and we're getting close to the end of our third season now, so we have a couple more shows coming up. Next week, we have Dan Moore, who's going to be doing a show on the Holy Guardian Angel. And then we're going to end the year with Lama Kathy Wesley, our good friend, and we'll be talking about some Buddhist stuff to end the year with. And then into hiatus for December, and we'll be back in January with a bunch of new shows to kick off the new year, including a New Year's panel of all of our psychic friends. So we'll have a look at 2022 and try and get a sense of what is in store for all of us. So make sure you guys come back to check that out in January. Get all the information on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out. And while you're there, if you can afford to, buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. It helps to cover our production cost, and we definitely appreciate it. Or sign up for our newsletter. And of course, the biggest way to help our show is just to click like and subscribe on YouTube so that YouTube takes us seriously and recommend us to your friends and share the wealth. And we love having all of you guys here, and we really love our fans. And so this show is for you guys. So don't want to take up too much more of your time. So I'm going to kick it back to Krista. So take it away, Krista.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And welcome, Dad.
Greetings.
Thanks for coming back on the show. We always love having you.
Delighted.
So let's get started because I know you have a lot of to cover. So let's start with, I think you wanted to start with the history of spirit attachment and releasement.
Okay. First, I was a theater director many years ago. Too long ago to remember, really. And one of the plays which I directed was William Shakespeare's Henry IV, Part 1. And early in the play, there are two characters having a verbal battle. The characters are Glendower and Hotspur. And Glendower boasts, "I can call spirits from the vasty deep." And Hotspur replies, "Why, so can I, so can any man. But will they come when you call them?" Well, I can say they come when I call them. And I have been speaking off and on since 1982 with spirits through clients, and I've spoken to hundreds. So if you wonder, is there life after physical death? Is there an existence? I can guarantee there is, because I've talked to a whole lot of earthbound spirits. So this procedure of interacting with and removing spirits goes back beyond history. I'm sure everybody at one time or other has run across mentions of medicine men, shamans. Now, incidentally, this has nothing to do with the Catholic exorcism. That's a totally different animal, and it's conducted differently, and it has nothing to do with what I do and what anybody else who does spirit releasement does. Now, this, I'm not aware of anything prior to 1900, and I'm not aware of any other country prior to 1900 that were involved. The first one that got involved with this was a doctor in Chicago, and he eventually wrote, his name was Dr. Carl A. Wickland, and in 1924 he published a book called 30 Years Among the Dead. And like most everybody else, he ran across this spirit by accident, which followed him home. But it wasn't really that much of an accident because his wife was a medium. But anyway, this spirit followed her home, and he started talking to it. And eventually, he discovered that many of his clients had spirits attached. Now, he had something a little bit different than anybody else does nowadays. He used a static electricity machine. I don't know what the heck that is, but it creates static electricity. And when a client would come in, he would bring him into his room where he worked, and his wife would be there, and he would apply this static electricity machine to the person, and to the spirit, this felt like he was burning. And the spirit would jump out of the body of the patient and jump into the body of his wife, who was a medium. And so this is very interesting. Nobody else does that nowadays, but yeah, this was very interesting. He was very rough with his spirits also. He called them dirty spirits and so on. But he did that for quite a long time, and he moved them on. Well, there seems to have been a hiatus there for a while, because I have no information whatever, until the next time I ran across it was in 1985. A Canadian psychotherapist named Adam Crabtree, PhD, published Multiple Man Explorations in Possession and Multiple Personality. And that was sort of interesting in one way, that it seems like sometimes in multiple personality, one of the personalities could be, or one or more personalities could be an attached spirit rather than a multiple personality. So he wrote a whole book about that. In the United States, in the next year, no, in 1987, Dr. Edith Fiore, who became very well known for her book, The Unquiet Dead. And then there was a woman, Irene Hickman. I think she was a doctor of osteopathy. In 1994, she wrote Remote Depossession, and then William Baldwin, who wound up creating an entire school teaching spirit releasement. He wrote in 1994 Spirit Releasement Therapy. I ran across it in 1982 or 1984, I'm not sure which, when the second client I had came in with an attached spirit, and I knew absolutely nothing about attached spirits, and I had to wing it at that time. And then a little bit later, I got hold of a audio tape of a seminar that Dr. Baldwin conducted periodically for therapists. And while I was listening to it, I discovered I had an attached spirit. And I won't go into that here. It's in my book, Earthbound Spirits Are Attached to You. But eventually I wound up removing a number of spirits, and most of them are cooperative. A large percentage are family members, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, sometimes friends. Occasionally, I get a spirit who was a friend of the present person in a past life, and they come into this life. Now, apparently, I never had this, but I remember hearing or reading Dr. Baldwin say that if you don't remove these spirits, they hang around and they'll wait until you reincarnate and then they'll come back and attach to you, which really sounds crazy.
They must be pretty bored to do that.
Must be what?
Pretty bored to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's a very strange. Now, there are important, incidentally, this has nothing to do with evil spirits, demons, exorcism, and the movies and the internet and cable TV, et cetera, et cetera. These are dead people. And if you have any doubt about that, let me assure you that you will survive your physical body, although you may be confused. Now, one of the problems with attached spirits is that a lot of times in an accident or in a lingering illness, and particularly if they have been given drugs, they don't know they're dead. And so if you say to them, well, you know, you're dead, they say, I'm not dead, I'm talking to you. And so then you have to say, well, okay, you know, will you look at your hands? And if it's a man, then he looks at the hands, and it's the hand of a woman. And then you ask him, you know, is that a hand of a man? They say, no. Okay, so you're in the body of a woman. So anyway, a lot of times they really don't know they're dead. Now, there are a lot of reasons for removing attached spirits. The first and the simplest is they use your energy. You know, it's like a multiple electrical connector. You know, you're connected and they're connected to you. And so they're sucking some of the energy out of your energy field. And I don't know exactly what energy they're sucking from you, but it obviously impacts not only your physical life and your physical existence, but it can affect the fact that you don't have enough energy to carry out whatever you came to this planet to do. So it's not okay to have a spirit, even if there are no symptoms, except for maybe, well, you know, I don't have as much energy as I should have. You want to get rid of them. Okay?
I wonder if it's some of those diseases that are just about loss of energy. I wonder if some of that could be spirit attachment to people that have like chronic fatigue or.
Yeah, that's a possible symptom that a spirit therapist is going to be looking for. If you don't have enough energy, they'll check on it. You know, as a way of checking it. Now, the entities can confuse the host because the spirits will speak to you, which is not to say that you hear them. A few people actually hear voices in their head, mostly people who are schizophrenic, but their thoughts mix in with your thoughts. And I remember, if I have time, I'll talk about this one young woman who was diagnosed as schizophrenic, and she had 4 spirits attached to her, and they were all chattering away inside her head. And they had been for I don't know, 7 or 8 years. No, I'm sorry. It was about 20 years, starting when she was about 7. And so, you know, by the time she came to me, she didn't know which was her thoughts and which were the spirit's thoughts, although she didn't even know that she had spirits. But what I'm saying is that the spirit's thoughts and the spirits can talk to you subconsciously, and that can get you very confused. So that's not very good either. and they'll try to influence you. Again, this young woman, if I have time to get to her, she had one spirit who was attached to her who tried to make her commit suicide so that she would come and be his girlfriend on the other side, which is about as weird as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any kind of a addiction, if you have drugs or alcohol or even cigarettes, almost guaranteed that you have attached spirits.
Mm-hmm.
They love addicted people. So if you're addicted, I can pretty much guarantee you 99.9% you've got a number of attached spirits. They can create physical problems for you. I remember reading about one where the grandmother was attached to a child, and the grandmother had arthritis, and this young girl had arthritis, and when he got rid of the grandmother, the arthritis went away. And I had one client who had a problem with her leg, and the doctors could not find anything wrong with it. And when the spirit left, the pain in her leg went away. Sometimes, on not too many occasions, but it's possible that a spirit will block a person's access to a past life. I had one a case when I was in New York where I went through an entire past life regression, and when I got through with it, the woman said, "That's not me." And I thought, "What?" So I told her to close her eyes again, and I said, "Well, who's been talking?" It turned out it was an attached spirit of a 13-year-old boy who had been guillotined in the French Revolution.
Wow.
And so I was regressing him to one of his past lives. So that's pretty weird.
That is weird. It gets pretty complicated in there.
It gets very complicated. To make it even more complicated, a spirit can have a spirit attached to it, and the spirit attached to a spirit can have a spirit attached to it, and it can go back several generations. And that can complicate things considerably. Some hosts become dependent on the spirit. I had one old woman early on when I was doing this who came to me. She said, "Well, this man is making me do everything. He won't let me take out the garbage and so on and so forth." And she just went on and on and on like that. And the spirit refused to leave, and I got him to disattach from her. But then 2 weeks later, she sent me a letter saying, "Well, he's back." And so it was obvious to me that she was not willing to let him go. And this is very common. And a lot of times when you're working with a person and you say you want, are you ready to let go of him, and ask the spirit, is it ready to go? The host sometimes will hesitate whether they want to let that spirit go. And in almost every case, once the spirit is gone, the person will feel lonely because on a subconscious level, they had a relationship, sometimes for 20, 30, 40 years.
Wow.
And this has been going on a subconscious level. And when the spirit leaves, they feel lonely. And also when people, when the spirits are gone, a lot of people will report that they feel lighter and freer. So there's actually almost a physical component to this.
So if it's a family member, say, that attached to you, say it was like your mother, and you do the releasement, is it okay to like honor her memory like once a year, and sort of how people do that for the Day of the Dead, and will that bring the spirit back?
It could bring the spirit back. However, if you do the releasement properly, it will not come back. When I first started out, I was not doing it properly because I didn't know the first thing about it. And I would remove the spirit, but I did not know that I had to send it to the light. And so on 2 or 3 occasions, the spirits came back. So one of the things that you have to do is make sure that the spirit is ready to go into the light. Make sure that your host is ready to let go of the spirit. And then you say to the spirit, okay, someone or someones have come to meet you. Can you see them? Sometimes they can't see them, so you have to work a little bit to see it. But usually there's somebody there who actually, in a number of cases, will say, well, we've been waiting for you for a long time. So they've been waiting for him. It very often can be parents and a wife, a husband, friend, or whatever. And the funniest one I ever had with that was I had a spirit who was an old farmer. And I said, are you ready to go into the light? And he said, yeah. I said, someone's come to meet you. And he said, I don't see anybody. And I said, what about your parents? I don't like my parents. I said, okay. How about your wife? I wasn't married. You have any children? No. You have any friends? No. I thought, oh my God. And so finally I said, okay, you're a farmer, right? Yeah. Did you have a horse? Well, of course I had a horse. Okay, get on your horse and ride into the light. And he got on his horse and he rode into the light.
I love that.
So, you get weird things. You get weird things with these. Most of these people, they're not highly intelligent. I ran across, very few people or spirits who were highly intelligent. These people are very ordinary people, and they act and think in very ordinary ways. And so sometimes you get some very strange things coming out of them. Now, I don't really know, why they come. A very common reason the spirit will give, which sometimes is true and sometimes it's just sort of self-serving. Well, I came to help this person. So, the spirit, the first spirit I found that was actually said, well, he came to help me because my father was yelling at me. I was a little kid and my father yelled at me and he came to protect me. And in almost every case of child sexual abuse, the spirit will say, well, I came to protect this child. Mm-hmm. But, once the sexual abuse has stopped, the spirit is still there and he's, well, I have to help her or I have to protect her, et cetera, et cetera. And then it becomes self-serving. Mm. I feel on a theoretical basis that there is an agreement of some kind at a higher level, mm-hmm. at an oversoul level, that they're going to interact for whatever reason. One of the things I tell people all the time is, you don't understand, what you think is going on this planet is not really what's going on. There is a spiritual subtext to everything that's going on the planet. Starting with your life, your family's life, your country's life, and for the planet itself. There is a spiritual agenda. And most of the time we don't know it. And the reason we don't know it is because if we knew it, we probably wouldn't do it. Well, humans are perverse. And this is one of those things. It's like, I'm talking to you right now and we have this software running. I don't know the first thing about software, but it's running, mm-hmm. And I'm talking to you. So a spiritual agenda works the same way. It's like a software program that you agreed to before you were born. So whatever the reason is, there may have been a good reason at one time, but there is no longer a good reason. I'll mention one very brief one. I had a friend who was a therapist, and we used to trade services with each other. And one time I was working on her, and she reported that there was a woman wrapped around her. And this woman came from a past life. She was a big, heavy woman, and she had wrapped herself around my friend to prevent her father sending sexual thoughts to her when she was a child.
Mm-hmm.
So this past life spirit was acting as a buffer, literally a buffer between my friend when she was a child and her father. So you can get all kinds of things like that. And I don't get, you don't get into very much with why did you come unless it's relevant, to the therapy that you're doing.
Is it possible they could have a past life connection?
Yeah, yeah.
That they just they didn't, maybe it's like many, many past lives before, earlier, not just the recent one.
Yeah, but I don't get, one of the things that I don't do, I'm doing therapy, I'm not doing research. If you're doing research, then you could spend time and say, okay, well, where did this all start? How did you get together, et cetera, et cetera. But when you have a client who is paying you a pretty hefty sum of money to help them, you can't go off and doing research. You have to limit yourself to how can I help this person with the problem they came for.
Right, makes sense.
So I really don't know of anybody that's done any research like that. It'd be worthwhile if somebody could fund it. Immediate family, a very common thing is, the mother or father or both of them are controlling, and they were controlling when they're alive, and now they're controlling when they're dead. So they don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the element of control is involved a great deal. I think even on the part of the host, not only on the part of the spirit, but there are control issues. And one of the things with spirit releasement, if you have a serious problem, once the spirit is released, you really should find a regular therapist to work with, because there's an issue. And you may find the issue during the spirit releasement, but if you don't find the issue, you want to find out what the issue was that attracted that spirit to the host. One of the things which I theorize is that in cases like an alcoholic which has attached spirits, I feel like the spirits, I know why the spirits are there, but I feel like the spirits are there to force the person deeper into their alcoholism until they confront it.
Right.
Because if it doesn't feel bad, well, why do anything about it? But if you get to a point where you've hit bottom, well, then you're going to do something, and an attached spirit will do that. It will with an alcoholic. It will push you to the bottom very definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Or the spirit will say, well, the host feels good. They're nice. I like being with them. I'm comfortable with them. And in a few cases, they refuse to go into the light, and then you've got a problem. And I've only had just a couple that I couldn't get to go. Okay, so let's see how much time we have.
No, we still have a good half hour.
Okay.
You're doing good.
So attachment is associated with drugs always. If you have any kind of a drug problem, you've got spirits, and you never have one spirit. You have anywhere from 3 to 100. Any kind of a trauma, you're going to have attached spirits in all likelihood.
So can I ask you, if you have like 100 spirits, would that mean you'd have to have more than one session, or can you do like bulk removal?
Yes, you can. You start out by talking to one spirit who is cooperative, who's very cooperative. They're ready to go, and they want to talk to you, and et cetera, et cetera. So then when the spirit says, well, I'm ready to go, you say, okay, fine. Can you tell me how many other spirits are attached to Mary? We'll call her. Oh, there are 8 spirits attached to Mary. Great. Would you ask them how many of them are willing to go with you? oh, 6 of them are willing to go with me. Okay, fine. I want you all to hold hands. A couple of spirits have come to take you into the light. So you and your 8 friends go into the light now. God bless you, and be on your way. Okay, now we have 2 people to work with. Okay, so that's how you work with a group, because the majority of them are ready to go. They're confused, or whatever the reason was for them to be attached. You know, if they're ready to go, you say, fine, go into the light. Okay, so debilitating illness, childhood sexual abuse, post-traumatic stress, any soldier, fireman, policeman, anybody who had post-traumatic stress from anything in their life. Anesthesia, possibly. Surgery, possibly. It's a trauma.
Right.
So any of these things can bring them. It's not automatic. And again, I mentioned, you know, there are agendas, there are agreements, and so that may simply be the mechanism for the spirit to attach. And so they attach to your energy field, and then sometimes they can't get out once they're attached, even if they want to. So then they're trapped. And sometimes you get a strange sort of thing. I had one where a person came, and I was doing shamanic work, and they and a friend of hers, they came to get the Munaiki rights. And the man said, you know, it's funny, but I tried to get the rights from the Foreign Society, and every time I called them, the line was busy. And so I finally, he had my name for some reason. I came to get the rights from you. And I said, well, okay, you're supposed to get the rights from me. So, you know, come on in. And so somewhere along the line, the woman told me, oh, the woman had a grandmother who was a kahuna healer in Hawaii. And somewhere along the line, I don't know if it was when I gave them the rights or if it was later, the woman said to me, well, my grandmother is attached to me. And I said, okay, let me talk to your grandmother. And so even though her grandmother is a healer herself, she couldn't get into the light.
Wow.
And so she used this mechanism of using her granddaughter to come to me to get the rights so that I could send her into the light.
That's fascinating.
So things get very complicated and twisted sometimes, for better or for worse.
You must have had a connection with the grandmother somehow for her to know you, to come to you.
I would expect so.
Yeah.
I would expect so. Yeah. This is one of those things. I mean, you don't know what your relationships really are. For example, when I first laid eyes, and I mean literally laid eyes on your mother, I was living in this apartment with my friend in Pittsburgh. And as I walked in the front door, I saw your mother sitting on the sofa. She was a friend of my roommate. And when I looked at her, I saw this spark of light go from her forehead to mine. And I saw this only two other times during the course of my life. And the third one was as a playwright, when he came to Raleigh and I was doing his play. And as I met him at the airport, I saw this spark of light come from his forehead to mine. Well, I know what happened with your mother, but I don't know what my relationship with that guy was. The only thing I could think of was he was a professor of Greek. And he didn't even have a college degree. He only had 1 semester of college. And he was teaching Greek at Bennington College. And so I immediately thought, well, okay, he had more than one Greek life in the past for him to be able to do that. And I had a couple of Greek lives. So I thought, well, maybe, you know, I connected with this guy for some reason. We had Greek life. But anyway, we have these relationships, but, you know, we're not aware of them most of the time. Okay, so let me see.
So it seems like a lot of the people you mentioned in terms of the books that you read, a lot of them are psychologists or doctors. So do you think that in modern society there's more cooperation than we realize with, sort of the professionals with working with therapy and spirit releasement? Do you think some of them probably train in both now? Because that was a while ago and it seems like there's probably a little more acceptance.
Oh, I'm sure there are thousands of people. Bill Baldwin set up a school, which was, he died a number of years ago, but he set up a school and he was teaching people for years and years and years and years and years. So there are thousands and thousands of people doing spirit releasement. And so, it's not just me and it's not just people that pick it up off the street. And they've been trained in this, and there are some books about it. So there are, even psychiatrists are doing spirit releasement. They're doing past life therapy, and they won't talk about it. You know, I remember one of my instructors never talked to his. He was a clinical psychologist, a PhD, and he said he never talked to his patients about past lives. He said he would just tell the person, "Okay, I want you to walk into this room, and there's nothing in there except the bench and four walls, and the walls are white. And I want you to sit down on the bench and look at this blank wall. And after a while, you'll start seeing pictures, and don't judge them. Just tell me what you're seeing on the wall." And that's how he conducted past life therapy.
Wow, that's clever.
Yeah, it was very clever. He was a very bright guy, very bright guy. And okay, so there are certain symptoms that will indicate that you may and probably have attached spirits. Any changes in your body, your personality, in your voice, behavior after an accident and an operation. If you had an operation and you were a perfectly saintly person, and after the operation you are cursing everybody and doing nasty things, et cetera, you can probably assume that you've got a spirit attached to you. Sudden irrational behavior, lack of concentration, memory problems, inappropriate behavior or speech, confusion, irrational fear, violent behavior in some instances, sudden mood swings, body sensations with no known cause. And sometimes the symptoms can get progressively worse over a period of time. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about how much time we got now.
20 minutes.
Great. Okay, I'm going to talk about this young woman. It was fairly early when I started doing this kind of thing. And she originally came to me for a past life reading. At that time, I had suddenly become able to do past life readings after getting some training on mediumship. And so I did a past life reading for her. And at the end of it, I said, well, you're here to give the world your light, bright energy. And this young lady, she was about 27, 28, and she was very slim. And when I first met her, she was talking like this all the time. And I thought, what's wrong with her? Anyway, she was talking very strangely, and she said, well, I don't feel very light and bright. And I thought, well, that's obvious. And so we went through a whole list of, and I thought, okay, let me just check what's going on. And I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, I'm not very responsible. I haven't had a job in 2 years. She was a commercial artist. And then suddenly she says, out of nowhere, we had never mentioned spirits. She says, you don't think I'm possessed by something or somebody, do you? And I thought, okay, she sure is.
Mm.
She brings this up. And so she told me she began smoking a lot of marijuana at age 16, and her psychiatric condition had begun at age 21. Soon after her mother died, that's another indication, if a parent or a grandparent or someone like that dies, and there's a change in your behavior, that's a sign. She had been diagnosed schizophrenic, given medication to control her behavior, and auditory hallucinations. There we go again. And then she tried to commit suicide. Well, that's certainly not very good. She told me she had a pain in her right hip joint. Then she also didn't smoke marijuana now, but she was smoking regular cigarettes, and apparently a lot of them. And it started about a year after her mother died, and her mother was a heavy smoker.
Mm.
Okay. See, you're already diagnosing her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just based on what I'm saying to you. And then she says, I think I sometimes do things in my sleep that I don't remember. So I said, we had a little bit of time left now. I said, okay, close your eyes. I want to talk to whoever does the smoking. And the next thing I hear is, mind your own effing business.
Not cooperative.
Not sounding like my client at all. And I said, well, thanks for talking to me. What's your name? You always ask them for their name. What's your name? My name is Al. Okay, Al, when did you die? And he said, he died in 1924. And I said, what happened? He said, I was hung.
Oh.
And he stole money to buy a car, to get a girl, and they caught him and hung him. So I said, when did you come to Anne, my client? He came to her when she was 7.
Wow.
And I said, why? And he says, well, she was a pretty little girl. Well, actually, we'll find out momentarily. He came to protect her, actually, although he didn't say so. And he said, oh, I had been trying to get Anne to commit suicide. And I said, why'd you do that? Because I wanted her with me.
Oh.
So he attached himself to Anne when she was a pretty little girl. He died because he didn't have a girl. So now he wanted Anne to commit suicide so he'd have a girl on the other side.
That's desperate.
That is absolutely desperate. Okay. So then he told me that Anne's mother and father and a spirit named Elizabeth were attached to Anne. And eventually I asked for Anne to see if she had what is called an inner self-helper. And I didn't get the inner self-helper, but I got another spirit that was a good spirit. And I don't know what kind of spirit it was. I have no idea, except it was very cooperative and it had been with Anne for some time. And this spirit, which she called Rosie, told me that Anne had been raped by her father when she was 7.
Oh, that's awful.
And which is probably why Al came. He came to protect her.
Mm-hmm.
So he also attached to her when she was 8, when she was alive. Now, I don't want to get into that. It's a long story, but sometimes live people will attach to other live people. And in this case, he attached to her when she was 8. So there was a lot of resistance from the father. The father had a dysfunctional family. He said his father beat him. And then later on, when we got to her mother had a dysfunctional family. So, this goes back to generations where you have this dysfunctional behavior and you get all kinds of bizarre things. One of the things which I don't have time to get into but I had a young woman come to me that not only had she been addicted, her husband had been addicted, both their parents had been addicted, their grandparents were addicted, an entire family of, I don't know, a dozen people were all addicted in 3 different generations. And she was worried about a fetus she was carrying, which was going to be a 4th generation.
Right.
And she didn't want the child to be addicted. So this can go on for a long, long time. So so finally the father left, and then I talked to Elizabeth, who it turned out was attached at Anne's leg, and Anne had gone to a doctor and had X-rays, and they couldn't find anything wrong, and she kept having this pain. And so this was a case where the spirit had cancer of the leg and of the breast, and so this is where the pain came, and so she was eventually. I'm trying to see, where am I at?
So if the spirit attaches to you with its illness, and you're not ill, do they get relief from some of their pain because you're feeling it?
Yeah, the spirit will somehow, because see, their energy field is attached to your energy field, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And your energy field is what is causing your illness. If you've got cancer, it didn't start with your physical body. Right. It started on your energy field. Okay. So if the spirit has cancer, it is because it's connected with you, it will send these signals to your body and you'll get cancer. Okay. But theoretically, I've never had a case like this, but theoretically, if you get rid of the spirit, you're going to get rid of the cancer. In this case, the woman didn't have cancer, but she just had a pain in her leg.
Right.
Okay. Now, yeah, no. In the case of Elizabeth, this was a reincarnational relationship. They had been friends in 1917 in the area that is now Yugoslavia. So what their relationship was, I didn't have time to get into, and I didn't get into it. Okay. So she was ready to go, and she went. Now, one of the things that a spirit has to do, you have to tell them to do it. They create a hole in your energy field. And you have to tell the spirit, I want you to heal this damage that you've done to this person's energy field. So I had Elizabeth heal the energy field of where it was on her leg. And I remember one other time I mentioned this boy who had his head chopped off. After I got through working with him, I said, I want you to heal. I don't know how to heal. I'm only a 13-year-old boy. And I said, okay, I'll tell you how to do it. I said, just you put your hands where this damage is, and then I want you to allow God to send a healing energy through your hands to heal this hole that you made in this person's energy field. And this little boy says, oh, I'm doing it. You're good. You're helping me how to do this.
Aw, that's touching.
So, yeah, it was cute. Oh, so finally Al left, and Elizabeth left, and the father left. And finally, I got to the mother, and the mother says, you're not getting rid of me. So I said, okay, her name was Maureen. I said, okay, Maureen. I said, what's the problem? Well, this girl, she can't take care of herself, and she dates the wrong people, and she hasn't had a job in 2 years, and I can't move on. And, I have to, look over. Went on and on and on. What it finally turned out to be was she felt her daughter was the only person who had ever loved her.
Aw.
And I said, well, what about your mother? She didn't love me. And I thought, okay, let's talk to the mother. And I said, you know, if the mother is able to come here, I'd like you to come here and speak to us. And sure enough, Maureen's mother shows up.
Huh.
And so Maureen said to her mother, why didn't you love me? And her mother says, you wouldn't let me.
Aw.
And they went on and on and on like that.
Huh.
And so it turns out, you know, this whole thing is because the mother, Maureen, didn't feel loved by her mother. And that although she was saying that she had to be here because her daughter couldn't take care of herself, actually, she felt her daughter was the only one who loved her.
Mm.
And she didn't want to go anywhere because her daughter was here.
Wow.
So we finally were able to get her to go, and she went. But she was a tough nut to crack.
Mm.
Okay.
Now, did Anne, I think that's her name, did she change after all these this work?
Yeah, I almost forgot the most important thing. She had said, I am irresponsible. I haven't had a job in 2 years. Now, she had an issue of wanting to be a free spirit, and on the other hand, of being responsible. And 2 weeks later, she wrote me that she had gotten a part-time job as a commercial artist.
Wow.
And I said, okay, she solved her problems.
Mm-hmm.
She is responsible half the time, and she is footloose and fancy free the other half of the time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I thought that was a very creative solution on her part.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing of, you can see here, this whole business of attached spirits, what had to do with her issue, but at the same time, she brought her family for therapy.
Right. Right.
So not only is she solving her problem, but she is getting therapy for her family.
Right.
So that was a very interesting particular case.
It shows the power of one individual affecting, you know, a larger unit. That's what's interesting, and uncovering things too, like that the mother didn't feel loved, and so that's really fascinating.
Well, you know, one thing that I remember, I sold life insurance many years ago, and they would send us these newsletters, and I remember reading in one newsletter that everybody knows 600 people. And another article I once read, they said 800 people, but let's say 600 people. You know, everybody knows 600 people. This means the newsboy, the mailman, the cashier at your neighborhood grocery store, your teachers, your friends, your family, et cetera, et cetera. 600 people. If something happens, I thought about this, about somebody dying. When somebody dies, 600 people are affected, maybe more. Of course, if it's somebody, you know, important, it's thousands or millions. But just for an ordinary person, 600 people. Well, it doesn't have to be death, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It can be like your brother David. Anybody he ever met loved him, period. He never had an enemy. He never had people who didn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother said her pregnancy with him was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
All the nurses loved her. All the doctors loved her. They were all solicitous. So this one person can create all kinds of things with other people, for better or for worse.
Right.
And so, you know, we have to understand we're not just here for ourselves, even if we think we are. We are affecting any number of people. You have two examples in politics. One was John Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
When he died, tribesmen in Kenya cried.
Oh. Just wanted to let you know we have 5 minutes. You wanted me to let you know.
Okay. I couldn't believe it when I read that.
That is amazing.
That a tribesman in Kenya was upset because, the great white president died.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. It was reported that Nikita Khrushchev cried, if you can believe that.
Wow. No, I can't.
And then you come to our former ex executive, Mr. Trump, and you see what kind of chaos, on the other hand, one man can create.
Very true.
And so, you want to try to be, as do the best you can for yourself, because if you do what you're supposed to do for yourself, you're going to affect any number of people. I mentioned this once to you that I don't know if you remember it, but I did a workshop just before I left New York, and I went to Santa Barbara. And this was on past lives and higher self and attached spirit and so on. And when I was living, when you came to LA, you were working at the Bodhi Tree.
Yes.
And you told me that one day somebody called up wanting my book, The Search for David. Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned that you were my daughter, he asked you for my address. And then the guy wrote to me and he said, I just want to let you know that you completely changed my life. He said, before there was nothing but darkness, and now there is light. And that just blew me away.
Aww.
So, you affect people, and you want to make sure that you're able to do the things that you need to do mm-hmm. in that life. And, if it means having a past life therapy or spirit releasement, do it. Because if you don't, you're going to be hobbled and for, possibly your entire life. And these things are available now. They weren't available in the past, but they are available now. People are trained. They are professionals. So avail yourself. If you have a problem that your doctor can't fix, if your psychotherapist can't fix it, start looking elsewhere. There are people around who will help you get rid of whatever it is you need to get rid of.
And your book has a simple exercise, which I used and found I really felt I released a spirit, which was a really interesting experience. So I thought I'd just do it to see how it worked. And I felt it worked. It wasn't, I think, a major thing, but it was interesting.
Right. It will help any spirit that wants to leave, who is confused, who doesn't know where to go. It will help them to go. You'll get a small percentage that don't want to go, and yeah, you have to find a therapist for that. You can't do it with this little exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I did a quick search before the show, and that there are definitely a lot more people trained in this that are also therapists, actually. So that's really interesting. So people can sometimes find both at one person. Yeah.
Well, you want to look. You can ask a person. You can call up a therapist and say, "Do you do a past life therapy?" Mm-hmm. And they'll say yes or no.
Right.
And then you move on. That's all.
Yeah. Well, thank you as always for coming back on the show. It was really fascinating. As learned even more about the whole process and also a little bit of metaphysical there.
Glad to be of service.
And thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to like and to comment and to subscribe. And we'll see you next week as we continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a great week.